Good morning, everyone. My name is Chase Kimmel. I work at the Florida Museum of Natural History in the Daniels Lab. I want to thank you for watching this recorded virtual lightning talk at ICOET. Today I'm going to be talking to you about a milkweed planting project that we have with the Florida Department of Transportation. As many of you might be aware, insect population numbers as a whole are not doing super great. While we don't have a lot of really good long-term data sets from the information that is known, a lot of species are in decline or are just not doing very well. This is true of many different insect groups, including butterflies. And the reasons for these can be numerous. There can be individual threats. There can also be a lot of threats that come in combination. We in the Daniels Lab want to try to promote pollinator habitat in a variety of different areas, whether that's native ecosystems, other wild areas, or in the built environment. Now, the reason we're going to be talking about milkweeds today is because they are host plants for the monarch butterfly. Monarchs, like a lot of other insects, are also on the decline based upon the last few decades of information on their overwintering sites in Mexico. And similar to many of the other insects and butterflies, there's a lot of different drivers that can be contributing to their decline. So because of these declines, they've been proposed to be listed as threatened by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. The public comment period for this is reopened until May 19th, 2025. The Monarch Candidate Conservation Agreement with Assurances is a nationwide conservation program for the monarch butterfly, specifically for energy and transportation lands. I'm sure many of you are aware of this, but for those of you that are not, this is basically a formal agreement between U.S. Fish and Wildlife and non-federal entities like utility and transportation companies to implement conservation measures on their land. FDOT, the Florida Department of Transportation, is a member of this. FDOT manages over 12,000 centerline miles and over 45,000 lane miles of public roads. We, as a lab, have worked with FDOT in the past on various projects, from looking at mowing frequency and how it impacts flowers, to identifying certain areas of high milkweed densities, so that they can use this information to reduce the mowing schedule to minimize the impact to milkweeds and therefore the monarch. We're actually working on finalizing a publication where we're using drones and cameras on cars to use machine learning to identify milkweeds as well as their development state. We've also worked with FDOT in some of their retention basins to plant different wildflowers, and we're still collecting a lot of data on those. These can be in dry retention basins as well as wet retention basins. Now, what I want to talk to you today about is the milkweed planting project that we have. Our plan is over a 3-year period to plant over 9,000 different milkweed plants. We're mainly focused on 2 different species, Asclepias tuberosa, which is butterfly weed, and Asclepias humistrata, which is pinewood's milkweed. Now what we're trying to do is we're trying to compare the container size and the use of a water-retaining polymer and see how that impacts the plant's survival, its establishment, its growth, as well as its development. So does it impact its time to bloom or its overall height? The goal of this is to establish best management practices for these 2 species of milkweed to help support monarch habitat. And these plantings occur on the outer fringe of the rights-of-way, as you can see in that photo. So we've identified various areas adjacent to conservation lands or other favorable habitat so that we can kind of create corridors for the monarch. Here's the different plants that we have. We've got Asclepias tuberosa here on the left and humistrata on the right. And like I said, we're planting around 3,000 a year, or over 9,000 over the course of 3 years. We have a whole team that we go out and we plant these, and FDOT installs these milkweed area signs to prevent contract mowers from going in and impacting them. We've got 4 different sites over these areas where we're doing a little bit of the experiment, where we're actually testing the use of the polymer and the container size. Each plant is actually denoted with a whisker stake. Behind my head here is a red whisker stake. Here's a green whisker stake just above it. But each block, so there's 2 species, and there's 2 blocks for each species. So there's 4 different blocks at each site, 4 sites, which would be 16 blocks of using these different treatment color-coded whiskers. Now, what we see from last year's data, which does not include any data from this year, is that we see there is a significant difference between the plug and the polymer, or the plug and the container on Asclepias tuberosa, the butterfly weed. We don't see any significant differences in any other areas. Just to note, we did not compare, we're not comparing the 2 different species, we're comparing within species here. So overall survivorship was better in the containers of tuberosa. Our goal is to really keep continuing to collect monthly data, both this year and the following year, as well as continue to plant. So this year we planted another 16 blocks of these plants to test this. We also have other areas where we're generally just mass planting milkweeds to look at survivorship as a whole. So today we planted just almost 4,500 milkweeds. We will continue this for the next 2 years to plant another 4,500 milkweeds and continue to collect data to try to better understand the impacts, to see if we can use the least amount of financial resources to get the most bang for our buck. Here's a picture of one of the milkweeds that we planted last year but was coming up this year, and as you can see really closely, there's a monarch egg. So that was pretty exciting. With that, I want to thank you guys. Here's my email address. I should be available virtually for questions, but my wife and I just had a baby less than 2 weeks ago, so I might be on a baby run. So if I'm not here to answer questions, there's my email address. Thank you.